One of the things we need to talk about is the phosphate buffer system. It's frequently neglected and people don't understand it very well, so I thought I'd make a video to help explain it and draw it on this wall, which will make it easy for you to see. So let's start off by making a tubular cell in the kidney. So tubular cell, and we'll make that essentially a big box. One big box, and then over to the right we will make the, I'm putting it in green because it'll show up better on the wall, tubular lumen. And the tubular lumen ends up, whatever fluid ends up on this side ends up eventually heading towards the urine and out of the body. So just making kind of a vessel-like structure or something over here for things to cross in and out of. And then on the opposite side, the renal interstitial fluid. So here's the renal interstitial fluid. Renal interstitial fluid on this side. So one of the things you need to know off the bat, right at the beginning, is that within the tubular lumen, already present is this, some sodium plus sodium HPO4. So now let's talk about what happens to acid in the phosphate buffer system. Oh, one other thing. In the renal interstitial fluid, there's some CO2. Because some of the CO2 is dissolved, so it's already dissolved in the fluid. So there's some CO2, and it, because it's dissolved here, it can dissolve, cross sometimes and cross over into the cell, and then sometimes head back the other way, but there's some CO2. So, but it's important that there's CO2 in the tubular cell, and you'll see why in just a moment. So what happens with this sodium plus sodium phosphate up here? This sodium ion here, this heads over here. So sodium heads over here. Why? Because it's exchanged. It's exchanged with hydrogen, and we'll talk about where the hydrogen comes from in just a second. And this is a protein transporter that does this exchange across this, the membrane of the tubular cell. So the sodium comes in, the hydrogen goes out. So what happens with the hydrogen? We already said that the sodium heads in this direction, so what's left over here? What's left over here is the sodium phosphate. So this drops down, sodium, hydrogen, so oops, HPO4. And here is the hydrogen ion, so plus that. And this all becomes NaH2PO4, sodium dihydrogen phosphate. So this ends up heading out. Out it goes. Not to be returned. So the hydrogen ion combines with the sodium hydrogen phosphate, becoming sodium dihydrogen phosphate, and this heads out the urine. So hydrogen ion taken care of. But again, where did this hydrogen ion come from? Well, you have dissolved CO2 in the tubular lumen. There's already water here. So if you add that to water, H2O plus CO2, and under the influence of carbonic anhydrase, this becomes carbonic acid, H2CO3. This will further break down to bicarb, as we know, as we've seen already, plus hydrogen ions. This hydrogen ion is the hydrogen that becomes this hydrogen, which is being exchanged for the sodium. So now we're looking at sodium having crossed in, hydrogen having left. So one cation is coming in, one cation is leaving. You have electrical neutrality. Here on this side, we have CO2 diffusing on both sides, But this bicarb that's generated, this heads back over here and is reabsorbed into the renal interstitial fluid. So the bicarb gets reabsorbed. So what we have, in essence, with the phosphate buffer is we have hydrogen ion heading out of the body, which has nothing to do with the carbonic acid equation, because that's contained within the cell. It's actually being absorbed by the sodium hydrogen phosphate, so it heads out this way. However, we have the bicarb here in the tubular cell. That gets reabsorbed into the renal interstitial fluid. And what's the benefit? This is actually, to the body, this is a net gain of bicarb. Kind of neat. So this is how the phosphate buffer system works within the kidney. Thanks.